Good morning, everybody. I'm still down in the Western Cape. Right now I'm in Lambert's Bay, one of my favorite places in the whole world. Genesis have a gym down here that was helped start by some great friends from overseas that just want to say a big shout out to you guys helping us to start this thing. And it's going really well, and it's been a real blessing to the community. Thank you so much, you guys. But we're in that series of metaphors. We spoke last week about Jesus declaring himself to be the light of the world. And today I want to move on into John chapter 6, where Jesus declares himself to be the bread of life. Sees in chapter 6 is an incredible chapter in the Bible, where it begins with Jesus feeding 5,000 people on a seashore, probably a little similar to the one I'm sitting on right now. And it wasn't a very impressive thing to do. That night he meets the disciples in the middle of the storm on the sea, and that must have been a frightening experience for everybody, but Jesus was there with them. And then the next day Jesus has this very confrontational conversation with the Pharisees and the supposedly learned people in that community. And it was interesting because they had this conversation in the presence of many people. Thousands of people had been following Jesus because he had fed them, and they were really impressed, and they loved being fed by Jesus, and they loved seeing his miracles. But as a result of this conversation, many people left from following Christ. Jesus wasn't particularly disturbed at the lack of numbers now in his congregation. He's never been impressed with numbers. But as a result of what he said, many people could not understand it, couldn't comprehend it, and Jesus lost a lot of his followers that day. But he was unperturbed. But the interesting thing about him declaring himself to be the bread of life, that was the truth that he was trying to prevail upon them. He wasn't trying to impress them like a circus act, healing people, feeding people. He did everything with truth in mind. In fact, all those miracles of Jesus were done so that he could preach a sermon as a result of what he had just done. Every miracle led to a sermon. And so the sermon that he's preaching here is about truth, where to find meaning, where to find purpose, where to find satisfaction. And the wonder of this beautiful passage is that Jesus declares himself to be the way. When he says, I am the bread of life, he's not saying anything about his teaching, anything about his miracles. He's talking about himself. There is only one place to be truly satisfied, he's trying to teach us, and that is through him. Now, in verse 32, verse 33, verse 48, verse 51, he says, I'm the bread from heaven, I'm the bread of God, I'm the bread of life, and I'm the living bread. He's making a point here that the world looking for purpose and satisfaction and feeding in a spiritual sense can only be found in him. But he goes on in the chapter to say, who can be fed by him? And there's 4 criteria. He says, he who first of all believes in the Son. Then he says, he who looks to the Son, he who comes to the Son, and he who feeds on the Son will be satisfied. Have a look at those 4 things quickly. He who believes. We all know that we need to begin with a belief. But a belief in our head, as we've said many times, is not enough. It has to permeate down into our very hearts and lives, and therefore people can see what we believe. Jesus is talking about that kind of belief. Feel free to feed on who Jesus is if you believe like that. Then he says, he who looks to the Son. Remember in Numbers 21, there's that beautiful story of the children of Israel as they had been bitten by snakes. And Moses came and said, just look at the bronze cross at the bronze serpent that hangs upon the pole, and you will be healed. I wonder if Jesus didn't have this in mind when he says, he who looks to me will be satisfied. Look to the Son. And then he says, he who comes to the Son, and that you'll know that you come to Jesus when you can look behind and say you've left something behind. And when you can look behind you and say, I've left my old life behind, I've left my old values and purposes and dreams and all of those things, I have found a new purpose. When you can look back and see you've left all that stuff behind, you probably know then that you have come to Christ. And then the last one, he who feeds on me will never go unsatisfied. Jesus is declaring himself to be the satisfaction factor. Now, he's not promoting himself for any other reason than telling you the truth. The truth of the matter is, if you're trying to find satisfaction in anything else, you'll never find it. It's a profound and yet simple truth that many people will admire, they'll applaud it, but not many people find it. I hope today, as you contemplate as we journey this week into the bread of life, I hope that we begin at the point of you acknowledging, I believe I had looked to Christ to have my sins forgiven. I have come to Christ. I know I have come to him because I've left the old life behind, and I now feed on him, and I find him to be totally satisfying. So, God bless you from Lambert's Bay today. This is Trevor signing out. Have a fantastic day, people, and we'll see you all tomorrow. Cheers there, bye.